Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Mortal Kombat video. Now, Sindel only a few mere weeks away. To build up to her release, I wanted to talk about her fellow Edenians and what has exactly been going on with them ever since they entered the universe and where they could possibly be now. So in today's history of breakdown and analysis, I will be talking about the demigod and son of Argus, Rain. And just also a heads up, since I am well aware that she is in extremely high demand, I will be doing Mileena as of next week, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, let's talk about Rain. Now, Rain as a character actually comes all the way from the original timeline. Making his debut in the third Mortal Kombat game, Rain has been around for a very long amount of time. Now, as I had briefly touched on earlier, Rain is in fact of Edenian descent, so he is an extremely rare individual to come across. However, what makes Rain unique compared to his other fellow Edenians is the fact that he is a demigod. You see, he's one of the three sons of Argus, and unlike Taven and Dagon, who are twins, he's somewhat the odd one out, being the offspring of an affair between Argus and an Edenian woman. Now, Argus was ashamed by what he had done, and thus resented the very existence of Rain, being seen by him as a bastard offspring. So never at any point in time did Argus ever acknowledge his existence, and not long after his birth, his mother would in fact pass away, so he ended up growing on the streets, and because of this, Rain was never exposed to his heritage, so he did grow up without a family. Now, a few years would pass by and his home world of Edenia would be invaded by Outworld, as the realm itself had lost 10 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments to Shao Kahn and Outworld. So because of this, Outworld was given full permission by the Elder Gods to merge Edenia with Outworld, meaning the death of hundreds of thousands of Edenians. Now, fortunately for Rain, he was evacuated from his home, giving him the opportunity to grow up without the influence of Shao Kahn over him, as this fate had fallen upon his fellow Edenians, Jade and Kitana. Now, although Rain wasn't brought up under Shao Kahn's rule, he did grow up within a rather strict environment, as the people that had saved him were resistance fighters, and some of the few Edenians left alive. Now, due to Rain's heritage, a lot of people had their eyes on him, as he seemingly had the ability to manipulate both water and lightning at his fingertips. So many individuals did have faith in Rain, believing that he at one point in time may in fact become their savior. However, they couldn't have been more wrong. Growing up in a very militant and strict lifestyle, Rain bared a lot of resentment against his peers, believing himself to be above them. So when the opportunity arose, he would betray all of them to none other than Shao Kahn, and having those who had saved him be killed. Now, Rain felt absolutely no remorse for doing this, as he believed that he deserved better than what the Edenians had planned for him. Now, despite joining Shao Kahn's army, he would seemingly disappear for a substantial amount of time, being absent in Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. However, during the events of Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode, a story mode that starts before the events of the first tournament, all the way up to the resurrection of the Dragon King, we learn that during the events of the first Mortal Kombat tournament, that Rain had seeked out a young man by the name of Shigenko, saying that he was apparently given the quest by Shao Kahn to track down some royal daggers that belonged to the Royal Shogun army. Now, with Shigenko being the protagonist, Rain would be successful in obtaining these daggers. However, despite getting them, he would be attacked by Jade, as it seemingly wasn't an order he was given by Shao Kahn, but more so a selfish and personal quest, which he was able to make Shigenko do. Now, despite being beaten up by Jade, he is seen later down the line with the daggers in his possession. Now, in terms of official debuts, Rain makes his first ever appearance in the third Mortal Kombat game, where he's present on the side of Outworld during the invasion of Earthrealm. As you see in the previous tournament, Shao Kahn had lost to Liu Kang, but despite the established rules of Mortal Kombat, Shao Kahn decides to push forward with his invasion anyway, and a massive war does break out between the two sides, with Rain entering Earthrealm and killing anyone in his way. Now, though this isn't entirely clear in the canon, I do feel like it is at least worth mentioning here. During the invasion and conflict that ensued in the third game, Rain was apparently approached by Kitana, who was aware of his Edenian heritage, and approached him in order to tell him that apparently his adopted father that saved him during the Edenian invasion was killed by none other than Shao Kahn. Now, supposedly, he turns against his rebellious leader and sides with Earthrealm, attacking the extermination squads, as he himself is apparently on a one-man suicide mission against Shao Kahn. However, due to the vagueness of this story, as well as him switching sides, had no actual impact on the overall story, it does raise questions as to whether or not this is at all canonical. But either way, by the end of the third game, after Shao Kahn has been defeated and Edenia has been freed from his grasp, he apparently severs ties with the Emperor, going into hiding for the next few years. Or in this this case, games. As you see, Rain is absent at this point in time, all the way up to Mortal Kombat Deception, to which of course he does appear in the Conquest mode. However, he has no actual impact in the story up until Mortal Kombat Armageddon, so he is absent during Mortal Kombat 4 and Deadly Alliance. Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Now it's during the events of Armageddon where he learns from the necromancer Quan Chi of his true heritage, and that he himself is a descendant of the god Argus. Now when Rain heard of this somewhat inflated his already big ego, as he learned at this point in time he was a demigod. However, he was extremely frustrated when he learned that Argus turned his back on him, when he learned about his mother, as well as the fact that his half-brothers Taven and Dagon were picked to somewhat be the chosen children of Argus. He naturally wanted revenge against his father. Although Argus himself at this point was dead, Rain wanted to tarnish the legacy he had left, and would actively seek out Taven and Dagon in order to prevent them from fulfilling their quest of defeating Blaze at the Pyramid of Argus. Now during the Conquest mode, he does attempt to stop Taven, revealing his identity to him and letting him know about his father's infidelity. However, despite his best efforts, he proves to be no match against Taven, and thus is defeated. Now Rain makes his final appearance during the Battle of Armageddon, where he has joined the forces of darkness in order to battle the forces of light, secretly hoping that he will be the one to prove his father wrong and obtain the power of Blaze. However, this is to no avail, because during the Battle of Armageddon, it is Shao Kahn who wins, and everyone else does fall and die. Now during the end of Armageddon and beginning of Mortal Kombat 9, Raiden somewhat resets the timeline, so all of these events are averted. However, the reboot definitely does go in a very different direction. So with that being said, Mortal Kombat 9. Now although Rain himself isn't in fact present in the story mode when the series is rebooted, he does appear as DLC, and because of this he has no overall impact on the main story of MK9. But of him being incorporated as DLC, there are in fact some slight changes and alterations to his background. He is still a son of Argus and does grow up as an orphan, but it does seem like before Shao Kahn's invasion, Rain was seemingly adopted by someone, and just before Edenia fell, Rain was smuggled away to some resistance fighters whilst his father set off to battle Shao Kahn and ultimately perished. Now again, he grew up around resistance fighters, but it seems like here, his cocky and arrogant nature here is far more prominent, as his godlike traits and abilities give him that extra edge over his fellow Edenians. However, despite this, he took advantage of his power and was extremely arrogant against his allies, and because of this, the resistance did look down on him. Now disgusted by their treatment of him, much like the original timeline, he would betray them for a chance at Shao Kahn's side. So for the next 10,000 or so years, he would be Shao Kahn's ally. Now Rain makes his first official debut in the rebooted timeline in the Mortal Kombat X comic books. After Shao Kahn has fallen and has been defeated by Raiden, an outworld civil war does ensue, with Shao Kahn's daughter Mileena going up against the Oztec known as Kotal Kahn. Now Rain chooses to be on the side of Mileena and does butt heads with Kotal multiple times during their skirmishes, but despite Mileena having Reiko and Goro by her side, she is driven out of Outworld, and thus Kotal takes over her place as Kahn. Now at this point in time, Kotal wants Mileena and her allies destroyed, and wanting to get more information, sends off his father Kotal Ketz to find their location. However, the only thing that Ketz is able to find is both Rain and Goro, as Rain blocks out the sun, preventing an Oztec from tapping into their true power, whilst Goro relentlessly beats and kills Ketz. Now this sends a message directly to Kotal, and grief-stricken, Kotal himself would resort to desperate measures. In the case of the comic books, he would use a Kamidogu dagger. Now unlike the previous timeline, where the Kamidogus were amulets, in this timeline, incarnation and reboot, they are daggers tainted with blood magic, an ancient form of outworld magic that will imbue its wielder with incredible power if they were cut with it. So Kotal would travel to Mileena's location under the influence of the blood code. Now much like before, Rain would attempt to block out the sun in order to hinder Kotal's powers. However, the influence and power that the Kamidogu dagger had given him made it so that Rain's efforts were in vain, and thus as a way of getting back at Rain, he would strike him down with a powerful beam of sunlight, scalding and horrifically scarring the demigod. Now Mileena would recover his body and take him to a safe location whilst Goro fought Kotal, but when he finally woke up, he's both confused and extremely worried. You see, in his unconscious state, he had heard from their Red Dragon ally that apparently Reiko had secretly been plotting behind Mileena's back, and that his true allegiance was towards the Chaos Cleric Havik. Now Havik and Reiko are the main antagonists of the Mortal Kombat X comic book run, so by Rain in fact revealing this information, it sparks Mileena to turn against Reiko, and she would travel to Shang Tsung's island to confront him with a Tarkatan horde. But this is in fact as far as it does go for Rain's run in the Mortal Kombat X comic book series, Mortal Kombat X. Now between the events of the comics and Mortal Kombat X, Mileena and Rain are still currently on the run from KOTOR, and they have gained a new ally, that being another Edenian known as Tanya. Now Mileena at this point in time is somewhat fighting a losing war, so in order to balance out the playing field, she employs the Black Dragon leader Kano to seek out Shinnok's amulet. By doing so, she believes she can harness its immense power in order to kill KOTOR Khan and obtain her spot as Outworld's rightful ruler, and Rain does strongly encourage this. However, Rain does have an ulterior motive. You see, although for the most part he has been loyal to Mileena, he's well aware that if Mileena keeps using this amulet, then it will in fact kill her. So if she keeps doing so, that's one more chess piece off the board, as he does have a lot of interest in becoming Outworld's ruler himself. Now unlike the original timeline between the comic books and that of MKX, Rain learns of his godhood and how he is a child of Argus. So believing it's his right to have a position like this, he would secretly start plotting behind the lines. Now during the early half of Mortal Kombat X's story mode, Rain can be seen alongside Mileena, Tanya and the Tarkatan forces preparing to ambush KOTOR Khan's carriage. Now KOTOR's carriage is eventually brought to a dead end, as it is in fact a trap made by Mileena. Now once they are boxed in, Mileena's Tarkatan forces immediately attack, waging a massive battle against KOTOR's forces. As this is going on, KOTOR is battling Kano, and the fight eventually breaks out into the streets. Now during this ensuing battle, KOTOR is able to defeat both Kano and Tanya, leading to a direct confrontation between KOTOR, Mileena and Rain. Now despite being on higher ground, Mileena is knocked off the balcony, causing Rain and KOTOR to battle it out, with Rain referring to KOTOR as nothing more than a false god. Now this fight eventually spills out into the streets, and Rain would be defeated by KOTOR, but before he can be executed by the marksman Erron Black, Mileena is able to interfere, confronting KOTOR directly in combat. Now despite having the element of surprise, she is defeated, but before KOTOR himself can strike the final blow, in a last ditch effort, Mileena pulls out Shinnok's amulet and attacks KOTOR and his allies. However, due to the sheer overwhelming power of the amulet, she does pass out, but luckily Rain is able to appear at her side and teleports her away to the Quartan jungle. Now roughly about halfway in the story is where Rain makes his final appearance. In Devora's chapter, Mileena's camp has finally been figured out, so Cassie and the Kytinn Devora would attempt to infiltrate the camp quietly, but they are eventually found out by Tanya and Rain, with the demigod taking on Devora. Now despite his divine heritage, Rain would be defeated by the Kytinn, and this is in fact the last time we do see him in the main continuity of Mortal Kombat, so he doesn't appear at all in 11, or isn't even name dropped. At most, the only reference we do have to the character is his hurricane kick that's now part of Shang Tsung's moveset. Now I do feel like it is at least worth mentioning here that he does appear at the end of Tanya's arcade ladder ending, where he's seemingly betrayed by her as she wishes to join KOTOR's side, and by doing so, he is in fact killed by being burnt alive. However, arcade ladder endings aren't always intertwined to the main canon, so Rain's fate is truly unknown right now. But yes, that is in fact it for the history of Rain. I do hope you have enjoyed this and learnt more by doing so. Now here's a fun little Easter egg before I do disappear. If you haven't quite caught on just yet, Rain is in fact an Easter egg and homage to the artist known as Prince, that being a song he made known as Purple Rain, hence why that out of all the color palette swapped ninjas, Rain has always been purple. It's a nice homage to the artist, as Ed Boon was always a massive fan of his music. But yes, I believe that sums up everything here. Now what do you believe has happened to Rain in Mortal Kombat 11? Do you think he's still around and kicking, or do you believe there's some form of validity to Tanya's ending? Please do comment down below, as I'm intrigued to hear what you all have to say about it. I've always been a pretty big fan of Rain, so hopefully at some point in the future, we will see him become a playable character on the roster once again. But until then, that's it for now. So before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a fantastic way of supporting this channel, and also don't forget to tick that bell and subscribe, as it will notify you when I do upload a video. So as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time.